The forest never forgets. That's what the old man whispered the day they found the shoe. Just one shoe. Mud-soaked. Cold. Small enough for a 6-year-old boy. His boy. Elliot was the kind of child who never let go of his father's hand. Not, even for a second, but on that morning, that cursed gray morning, his tiny fingers slipped away in the middle of the crowd. The school bus arrived late. The fog rolled in early. The teachers called it a harmless hike, an adventure, but in the woods, nothing is harmless, and adventures often end with monsters. The last time Daniel saw his son, he was adjusting the boy's red scarf, knotting it too tight. The wool left marks on Elliot's soft skin. Daniel kissed his forehead, told him to stay close. "I'll be waiting, buddy." But Elliot never returned. They searched for days. Hundreds of feet trampling over leaves, mud and broken dreams. Helicopters circled like vultures. Dogs barked themselves hoarse. And the forest stayed silent, watching, listening, hiding its secret. The other kids said Elliot simply walked away. One moment there, the next, gone. Like he stepped through an invisible door. Like the earth opened its mouth and swallowed him whole. No footprints, no screams, just the red scarf, snagged on a jagged branch stained with something dark and old. Daniel's world collapsed. His wife, Elise, couldn't bear the weight. She left a month later, vanishing from his life like their son did. The house became a tomb. Walls suffocated with silence, photos stripped from the frames, drawers left open, as if someone had been searching for something, or someone. But Daniel never moved. He waited. Through rain, through snow, through the mocking whispers of neighbors and the suffocating pity in their eyes. He refused to sell the house, refused to touch Elliot's room. The bed remained made, the toys untouched, the air thick with the scent only a parent could remember. Baby shampoo, crayons, and unshed tears. 15 years, 15 long winters. The day the letter appeared was the day the snow fell silent. No wind, no birds, just the soft thump of paper against the front door carried by the bitter January breeze. It wasn't mailed, no stamp, no return address, just his name, scrawled in the handwriting he would know anywhere. His son's, Daniel's, fingers trembled as he unfolded the yellowed page. The ink had bled from moisture, but the message was clear. "I never meant to leave you, Dad. I tried to come home, but he wouldn't let me." The words tore through him, the weight of them crushing, his breath shallow and sharp. The letter was real, the paper still warm, as if it hadn't traveled through the cold alone. But that wasn't all. Tucked inside was something worse, something impossible. The second half of the red scarf, perfectly clean, the knot still tight, like it had never been lost to the woods at all. Daniel couldn't believe it. His mind screamed for logic, for explanation, but deep inside his heart whispered the truth. Elliot was alive, or something wearing his name was. That night, Daniel returned to the forest, the same trail, the same air, heavy with pine and death. Every sound, amplified, every shadow, alive. The trees seemed taller, leaning closer, branches twisting like fingers desperate to touch. The deeper he walked, the colder it grew. The path bent in ways he didn't remember, leading him places that weren't on the map. His flashlight flickered, dancing against bark scarred with strange carvings, symbols, names, dates. His son's name was there too. But the date was wrong. The date was today. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. His breath clouded in the freezing air. And then he heard it, soft, almost a whisper. A child's voice. "Dad?" He spun around, light slashing through the dark. Nothing, just empty woods and the sound of branches sighing in the wind. But the voice came again, closer. "I'm still here," Daniel called out, voice raw, desperate. No answer, only laughter, faint and brittle, like glass ready to shatter. The next morning, they found him at the edge of the woods, collapsed, clutching the scarf. His mind fractured, his voice gone. But the letter vanished. As if it had never existed, and deep in the forest, something watched. Something waited. A shadow with Elliot's eyes, and a smile that didn't belong to any child. The town tried to forget. They always do. A missing child becomes old news, a faded poster on rain-soaked poles, a whisper in the supermarket aisle. Faces change, streets change, but the forest stays the same. After that night, Daniel wasn't the same man. His hands trembled, his eyes hollowed, and his words, the few that still lived on his tongue, were broken, stitched together by fear. The scarf never left his pocket. He clutched it like a charm, like a promise. But deep down, he knew. The boy he'd heard in the woods wasn't his son, not anymore. Days bled into nights, seasons dissolved into each other. The sun itself seemed to avoid the house at the end of Hollow Creek Road. Curtains stayed drawn. The mailbox remained empty, except for one thing. Letters. More letters. No return address. Always written in the same crooked handwriting. Always signed the same. "I'm still here, Dad." Each letter held a new piece of the puzzle. Childhood memories Daniel never told anyone about. Places only Elliot could know. The smell of his mother's perfume. The way the old floorboard creaked by the stairs. The stuffed rabbit with one missing. Eye that only Elliot used to hold tight at night. But the final letter, the last one, wasn't like the others. "I want to show you something, Dad. Come back to the forest. Midnight, I'll be waiting." There was no decision. His heart had already made the choice long before his mind caught up. Midnight. Cold. The kind of cold that bites the bone, not the skin. The moon hung low, bloated and pale, like an unblinking eye staring down. The flashlight barely cut through. The dark, the beam swallowed whole by the trees. He followed the path again. This time the forest seemed different. The air smelled sweet. Rotten sweet. Like fruit left too long in the sun. A soft humming drifted through the branches. Low at first, but rising. Human, but wrong. Off-key. Childlike. He followed the sound. The deeper he walked, the stronger it grew. His legs moved without thought, as if the forest itself was guiding him, or pulling him. Then he saw it, a clearing, lit by moonlight that seemed too bright, too sharp. At the center stood a figure, small, barefoot, wearing the same clothes Elliot wore the day he vanished. The boy turned around slowly, his face. It was Elliot, but it wasn't. The skin was too pale, too smooth. The smile stretched too wide. And the eyes were black, hollow, like deep wells with no bottom. "I've been waiting, Dad." The voice was soft, familiar, but behind it something else lurked. A second voice, deeper, older. Daniel couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Elliot, or the thing wearing his face, stepped closer, holding out a small, dirt-stained hand. In his palm, a single object rested, a locket. Daniel recognized it immediately. Elise's locket, his wife's, the one she wore the day she left. "Mom says hi." Daniel fell to his knees. The ground below him wasn't dirt anymore. It pulsed. It breathed. The forest wasn't just alive. It was awake. The boy tilted his head, the smile widening until the skin at the corners of his mouth cracked, revealing teeth that weren't meant for a child. Sharp. Endless. "Come home with me, Dad. It's better there. No more pain. No more loss." Daniel tried to speak, but the words refused to leave his throat. His hands clenched the scarf in his pocket so tightly, his knuckles turned white. The boy, the creature, took another step. "You promised, you said you'd be waiting." A sound echoed through the woods, a clock chime, midnight. The figure blinked, the smile vanishing, replaced by something else. Hunger. Time's up. The ground split beneath Daniel, the roots twisting, wrapping around his ankles, pulling him down. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed him was the boy's silhouette, waving goodbye. When Daniel woke, he was in his bed, or so he thought. The room looked identical. Every detail perfect, the same cracked ceiling paint, the same photo of Elliot on the dresser. But the light was wrong, too dim, too still. And outside the window, the world didn't move. The trees were frozen, leaves suspended mid-fall, as if time itself had stopped. A knock at the door. He opened it. There stood Elliot, smiling. "Breakfast is ready, Dad." The table was set. Pancakes, syrup, milk. Just like they used to do on Sundays. The boy sat across from him, swinging his legs, humming the same off-key tune from the forest. Daniel tried to eat. But the taste was like ash. "You can stay here forever, Dad." Days passed. Or what felt like days. Time didn't work the same in that place. The boy never aged. The food never spoiled. The world outside the window remained frozen, and at night when the lights dimmed, Daniel heard them. Voices, whispering through the walls. Names, dates, stories of others who came before him. Other fathers, other sons, and always the same ending. "I never meant to leave you." But Daniel began to notice something else. A crack in the wall, just behind Elliot's photo. It wasn't there before. Each day, it grew wider, and from it, the scent of pine and earth and something burning. One night, when the boy was asleep, Daniel approached the crack. He pressed his ear against it. Silence. Then, a voice. "Daniel, help me." Elise. Her voice, weak, distant, but real. The crack widened. Under his touch, the plaster crumbling away, revealing darkness. A tunnel. Endless, cold. Without thinking, he climbed through. The tunnel twisted and turned, the air growing heavier, filled with whispers and shadows that brushed against his skin. Faces flickered in the dark. Familiar, unknown, forgotten. And then, light. He emerged in the forest, or what was left of it. The trees were ash, the sky a dull red, the air thick with smoke. At the center of the clearing stood a figure, Elise. But like Elliot, she wasn't the same. "Why didn't you come sooner, Daniel?" Her eyes glistened, not with tears but with something darker. She raised her hand, revealing the locket, now open, the photo inside replaced with something unrecognizable. A face he couldn't place, but somehow knew. "It's waiting for you." She stepped aside. Behind her, the ground opened, revealing a staircase, descending into blackness. And from below, the sound of a heartbeat. Slow, heavy, matching his own. Daniel descended. The walls were alive, flesh-like, pulsing. The air was suffocating, thick with the scent of decay and memories. His footsteps echoed longer than they should have. At the bottom, a room, and in the center, a mirror. But not his reflection. Elliot. Aged, 15 years older, wearing the same red scarf. "You finally found me, Dad." The real Elliot. Eyes hollow, but human. His voice cracked barely above a whisper. "You can still save me, but you have to choose." From the shadows, the other Elliot stepped forward, the creature, smiling. "One of us leaves, one of us stays." Daniel's heart twisted, the weight of the choice crashing over him like ice water. His son, his real son, or the thing that wore his face for so long. Choose. And then, darkness, sharp, blinding pain in his chest, the sensation of falling, endless and cold. When Daniel opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor of Elliot's old room, the scarf, draped across his chest, The letters, gone, and the house, empty. But on the wall carved deep into the wood a message: you chose wrong. The house had changed, or maybe it was Daniel. The walls were too quiet, the floors too still. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of old wood and unanswered prayers. The message on the wall burned behind his eyes. You chose wrong. But Daniel couldn't remember the choice. His mind, fogged. His heart, hollow. Only the scarf in his hands felt real. Only the silence screamed. Days slipped by. He moved like a ghost, wandering from room to room, retracing footsteps that no longer belonged to him. The world outside carried, on the town forgot as towns do, but the forest never did, and neither did Daniel. One morning he found it, tucked behind Elliot's bed frame. Another letter. The game isn't over, Dad, it never was. The handwriting was the same. The ink, fresh. But the paper felt warm, like it had just been written, like the writer was still near, and the scent. Pine, smoke, and something else. Ash. His nights became sleepless, the clock hands spinning faster than time itself. The house would shift, groan, breathe. Sometimes the lights flickered. Sometimes the walls whispered, and always the same voice: you chose wrong. But Daniel refused to let go. He gathered the letters, each one a breadcrumb, a map stitched in ink and blood. The forest held answers, and he wasn't leaving without them. Midnight, again. The forest greeted him like an old friend. Twisted branches, black soil, shadows that moved when you weren't looking. And at the center, waiting, was a figure. Not the boy, not the creature, but Elise. She stood there, the locket in her hand, swinging gently like a metronome, her face half shrouded by the dark, her eyes hollow, her voice soft. You shouldn't have come back, Daniel. The wind carried her words like broken glass. You don't belong here anymore. But he stepped closer. The locket glinted under the pale moonlight, and behind it, something moved. A shape, small, familiar, Elliot, or at least the shadow of him. You left me, Dad. The words stabbed deeper than any knife. You let me go. Daniel's legs buckled. The guilt, the weight of all those years, crushing. But the shadow didn't stop. It stepped closer, the features sharpening, the face shifting. One moment a child, the next something far older. Eyes that had seen too much. Skin stretched, thin over bone. You promised you'd be waiting. The ground cracked beneath Daniel's feet. Roots slithered like snakes, wrapping around his boots, pulling him downward. Elise stood still, unmoving, her face cracked like porcelain, her voice a whisper. It's too late now. But Daniel wasn't ready to surrender. He reached for the scarf. The one thing that never changed, the one thing untouched by lies. The fabric burned cold against his fingers, but he held tight. I never stopped looking. The shadow tilted its head, the smile fading. For the first time, it hesitated, and the ground released him. The world around him shifted. The forest blinked, like an old reel of film-skipping frames. Trees stretched, the sky twisted, the earth tilted, and suddenly he stood elsewhere. A room, unfamiliar, sterile, white walls, cold light, a hospital. Monitors beeped softly, machines hummed, and there, on the bed, Elliot, older, alive, his face gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale, but human. The doctor's voice broke through the fog. He's been in a coma for 15 years, Mr. Blake. Today, he finally woke up. Daniel staggered forward, his throat dry, his legs weak. The boy turned his head, slowly, painfully, and whispered, You found me, Dad. Tears blurred his vision. His hand reached out, brushing his son's cold fingers. The moment stretched, the room holding its breath. But then, Elliot's expression shifted. The eyes. Those eyes. Black. Empty. But you chose wrong. The machines flatlined. The world dissolved. Daniel gasped, sitting bolt upright. Back in the forest. It had been a dream, or a memory, or neither. The scarf lay across his lap, damp with blood. And at his feet, a new letter. One last chance, Dad. Meet me where it all began. The old school, abandoned now. Boarded windows, peeling paint. The scent of mildew and childhood long forgotten. Desks overturned, blackboards faded. Time had gnawed through everything, except the memories. Daniel walked the empty halls, the echo of laughter haunting every corner. Posters curled with age, lockers rusted shut. And on the wall, carved deep, I never left. The classroom. His heart knew the way before his feet did. The door creaked open. Inside, a desk. One single desk, and on it, the locket. Open. Empty. A voice behind him. I've been waiting, Dad. Elliot. Or the shadow wearing his name. Daniel turned, facing the boy. Older now, dressed not in the clothes of a child, but in something darker. Formal. Black suit, red tie. The face was almost perfect. Almost. It was never about saving me. The boy stepped closer. It was about replacing you. The windows shattered, the world outside folding in on itself. Shadows spilled into the room, crawling up the walls, wrapping around Daniel's arms, his legs, his throat. You stayed too long, Dad. You should have let go. The room collapsed, the walls cracking, the ceiling caving. Light drained away until only darkness remained, and from the dark, a whisper. Welcome home. Silence. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses against your ears so thick it drowns every thought. When Daniel opened his eyes, the world was gone. No forest. No school. No sun. Only darkness. It stretched in every direction, endless and empty, yet suffocatingly close. He couldn't see his hands, couldn't hear his heartbeat, couldn't feel the ground beneath his feet. And then, the voice, soft, whispered, You've always been here, Dad. The darkness flickered like an old light bulb struggling to hold its glow. Shapes began to emerge. Walls, a ceiling, a hallway. His hallway, the one from home, but different. The walls breathed. The floor pulsed like living flesh. The family photos along the corridor twisted. Faces stretched. Smiles widened into sharp, unnatural grins. Eyes followed him, even as he forced his legs to move forward. At the end of the hall, the front door. It stood wide open, and beyond it, the forest calling him back. He stepped outside. The cold wrapped around him like a shroud. Snow drifted from a sky that wasn't a sky at all, but a black void filled with blinking, watching stars. In the distance, the old swing set creaked, moving back and forth despite the windless air, and sitting on the swing was Elliot. The boy's back was turned. His legs kicked gently, shoes scraping the dirt below. A tune hummed softly. Off key. The same one. Daniel moved closer, each step heavy with dread. The boy didn't look back, only spoke. Why did you stop? Looking for me, Dad? Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to answer, but his mouth refused. The boy stood up, turning slowly. His face was no longer young, older, tired, aged beyond his years. You left me there. A tear slipped down Daniel's cheek, but the boy smiled. It's okay. You can stay here now. Forever. Behind him, the shadows stretched, rising, bending, twisting into towering figures, human-like but wrong. Elongated, limbs, hollow eyes, and all of them wore the same red scarf. They all stayed too. The ground beneath him gave way once more. But this time, he didn't fall. He floated. The forest dissolved into light. And then, the hospital room. Again. Monitors. Beeping. The sterile scent of antiseptic. The same bed. The same boy. Elliot. But this time, there was no confusion. His son's eyes were open, wide and alert. "I remember everything now, Dad." Daniel approached the bed, hands trembling. "I wasn't lost. I was taken." The boy's voice cracked, full of pain. "By something that looks like me, feels like me, but isn't." Tears blurred Daniel's vision. The boy squeezed his hand. "And it still wears my face." A nurse stepped into the room, clipboard in hand, soft smile. But her eyes, black, empty. Elliot's grip tightened. "Run." The walls closed in. The light dimmed. The nurse's smile widened, splitting her face in two. Daniel pulled his son from the bed, the machine screaming behind them, the world bending around them like wet paper. The hallway stretched. Doors lined both sides, each one labeled with names. His name. Over and over. And behind each door, the sound of weeping. "Don't stop, Dad. Keep going." The hallway spiraled, tilting, collapsing. The exit sign pulsed like a heartbeat, distant but constant. And just as they reached the door, a voice. "You can't leave." The floor split, swallowing the nurse whole, her scream turning into static. Daniel and Elliot tumbled through the exit, into blinding white light. Silence returned, but this time it was calm. When the light faded, they stood in the clearing. The real one. The forest, untouched. Morning sunlight filtering through the branches. Elliot looked older, but real. Flesh and blood. Eyes filled with something he hadn't seen in 15 years. Hope. But at his feet, the scarf, and stitched into the fabric, a new message. The game never ends. The morning sun bathed the forest in gold, but it felt wrong. Too warm. Too still. Daniel stared at the scarf in his hands, the stitched words burning into his mind. The game never ends. Elliot stood beside him, silent, watching the trees. His face was older, his eyes not the same, not the boy Daniel remembered. "We should go home," he whispered. But the word home felt foreign on his tongue, as if it didn't belong to him anymore, as if it never had. They walked back, step by step, out of the woods, back to the quiet town, back to the house that had waited 15 long years. The front door creaked open. The house greeted them like an old wound. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Photos still hung on the walls, covered in dust, but one photo, the one from Elliot's last birthday, had changed. Daniel's heart froze. In the picture, Elliot stood smiling, holding his cake. But standing behind him was Daniel. Older, the man he was now, not the man from 15 years ago. The air grew cold. Elliot's voice cut through the silence. "I told you, Dad." Daniel turned. The boy stood at the foot of the stairs, eyes dark, voice empty. "You never left." The walls trembled. The floor cracked. The house exhaled, long and deep, like it had held its breath for 15 years. Daniel staggered back. His mind raced, memories scrambling like broken puzzle pieces. The letters, the scarf, the shadows, the choice. He had never left the forest. He never found Elliot. He was still there, still searching. The world around him flickered, peeling away like old wallpaper, revealing darkness beneath. The house dissolved into trees. The ground softened into soil. The sky dimmed into dusk. And standing there, in the clearing, untouched by time, the boy, Elliot, small, young, the same age as the day he vanished. "You were supposed to find me." Daniel fell to his knees, his chest hollow, his mind empty. The boy stepped closer, kneeling beside him. "You chose wrong, and the world reset." A school bus parked at the edge of the woods. Children laughing, backpacks bouncing, teachers calling names, and Elliot, 6 years old, bright-eyed, waving at his father one last time. "I'll be back soon, Dad." The bus door closed. The wheels rolled. The forest waited, and Daniel stood frozen at the edge of the road, unable to move, trapped inside a loop that never ended, the letter still in his hand, the ink still fresh, the words unchanged. Meet me where it all began. And as the bus vanished into the trees, a shadow stood beside him. A voice whispered in his ear, "Next time, choose better. Fade to black."